Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the November 2nd Board of Education, regular Board of Education meeting. Initially I just want to take care of some housekeeping items first. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Publics Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the School Districts of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the Chatham Township and the Chatham Borough, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind doing roll call?
Mr. Gilfield.
Here.
Ms. Chigarelli.
Here.
Ms. Clark. Mr. Connors.
Here.
Ms. Cronin.
Here.
Mr. Furman.
Here.
Ms. Kenny.
Here.
Mr. Manamaker.
Here.
And Ms. Weber.
Here.
8 present and counting.
Very good, thank you. Would everybody stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, everybody. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a nice Halloween this weekend. Safe and happy Halloween. I do not have additional board comments now, although I may have some before public commentary. Dr. LaSousa, if we could jump right into your report.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Weber. I'll begin just by mentioning that we had a lot of activity at our school buildings over the weekend between Mischief Night and Halloween. And it's not the kind of activity that we like to have at our school buildings. So just as an example, we had a couple of kids who took shaving cream to the signs at some of our schools, including Milton Avenue School, where their parent supervised the activity and didn't stop with the shaving cream, even though one of our maintenance workers who was patrolling all of our schools that night asked him to. We had other instances of parents dropping kids off at the middle school with backpacks filled with shaving cream and other items. And again, despite our maintenance staff member who requested that the parents not drop their kids off after school hours, refused. And subsequent to that, we had the same maintenance workers confiscate beer off of middle school age students and other items from the back of the middle school where kids were going in and out of the woods. We had neighbors yell at our maintenance staff, telling them that kids should just have fun and lay off a little bit. And on top of that, we had a number of acts of vandalism and graffiti at Cougar Field, all over the field house, on the track, on the turf, which our maintenance crew spent the better part of this morning cleaning up and dealing with. So we're working with the police to try to identify any individuals involved in any of this. I'd like to ask that if anyone in the public knows of who committed some of these acts against the school district, that they can certainly reach out to an administrator at the high school, or they can call me directly. And we'll continue to try to figure out who is responsible for some of the damages to district property. And I just wanted to also express my disappointment and say it will probably require us to take additional measures next year, all of which involve money and time on the part of the school district, to prevent similar acts of disrespect and defacement of the school district property. Next thing I'll say, on a better note, I guess, we did conduct our first random drug sweep of Chatham High School since the last meeting with the K-9 unit of the Morris County Prosecutor's Office. That went extremely well. The entire exercise lasted about 15 minutes. I was on hand for that. And the high school did a great job of working with the township police and the county to make sure that it was smooth and no students had any real disruption to their school day. Just got back from the annual school boards convention in Atlantic City. One of the hot topics, of course, was the release of park results. The state has indicated that the statewide results were very low. There was a precipitous drop in student achievement or student performance versus NJASC and HESPA. So we expect to receive or begin to receive student level reports sometime this month. And then we are supposed to receive district level and school level reports sometime in December. So at upcoming board meetings, I'll update you as we have more information about Park. But so far, we don't have anything from the Department of Education. Finally, I have a brief PowerPoint presentation just about the feedback and survey results that we've undertaken over the past month to solicit input from the public about a potential referendum. And I will get to that after I answer any questions about the preceding items I just mentioned.
Thank you. I see a few of my board members motioning that they do have questions. On the vandalism, the damage that was done was at Cougar. There was no damage done at the middle school?
Correct.
And I know you filed a police report. Have you been able to quantify the dollar value of the damage yet at Cougar? I know it may take some time, not just in labor and time and cost, but damage to the turf field, which, cost $500,000 to lay down and is now damaged in several spots.
We haven't quantified that yet. I can tell you that the field was easy enough to get matching green paint to spray paint over the graffiti. The track is more difficult. We don't think we can power wash the track because we think it'll kick up some of the rubberized surface, and it's harder to find an exact match of the paint. So we actually are considering just painting the track in that area black to cover up the graffiti. But we're still working on that one.
And the blue is covered with blue. It certainly doesn't match. I mean, I'm sure they did the best they could on short notice. Is the goal just to keep it like that? Can that be power washed off? I mean, I know the yellow line that was painted intentionally to extend the soccer field out has worn over time. Can that be power washed?
I don't know about the turf being power washed. I don't think it can be without getting the pellets all over the place. And we can repaint the sides of the field house in a matching color of blue once we get it.
Right, okay.
Were they able to remove the sand from the turf?
I didn't. Yeah, Peter might be able to answer that.
When I spoke to the maintenance staff this morning, they were going to both industrial vacuum it and kind of do their best to rake it out. But the sand was put down by the recreation department to kind of hide the graffiti because they had a lot of embarrassment.
Oh, the sand wasn't part of the...
No. The sand was put down to hide the graffiti because that's where the youngsters that were there for Sunday morning football stand, as they wait. So they really want that image for the youngsters.
I assume you're keeping track of all the costs of the maintenance and the stuff so that you're reimbursed for this.
Yes, all of the costs are being tracked, whether it be labor, any materials, and if we need any outside vendors.
Mr. Connors, I see you had a question.
Thank you. Mike, you indicated, is this the first time that something was done at Cougar on the Halloween mischief night timeframe? I mean, I'm familiar with the roaming activities in the neighborhoods and the like, but I don't recall in prior years, because you indicated that you were thinking of undertaking additional security, but was this, I think this is, as far as I can recall, the first time something like this had occurred on the mischief night Halloween. Am I incorrect on that?
I think it's the first time in my memory anything happened at Cougar. We do have two of our maintainers working overtime on mischief night to circulate around the buildings. It's not clear to us. We believe that most of the damage at Cougar was done on Halloween, not mischief night, but we're not certain about that. Saturday night.
Yeah, it wasn't,
There was a football game there on Saturday.
right. It was done Saturday night into Sunday morning.
So there was a game Saturday, or did the boys play home or away Saturday? I thought they played away.
There was a JV or freshman game, yeah.
Maybe your freshman played home.
Okay.
And soccer practiced on Saturday, and there was nothing else.
And we don't have any cameras there or anything?
We don't have any cameras down at Cougar
Not yet.
yet.
But that's the first time that's ever... I know there's been acts at other...
Yeah.
To the point of what I just saw in the pictures. I think that's the first time I've ever seen to that extent.
So you'll be able to give us the price tag on all that damage at some point?
Do we have any leads as to
There are a couple of leads.
Okay, good. There you go.
All right, so let me get to the survey
The
feedback.
survey?
The things like that, mortgage at home.
Okay, so just, I'll move along kind of quickly, but obviously last year there was a failed referendum. Many of the priorities identified in the referendum didn't go away just because the referendum went down, so the Board of Education has spent some time late last school year reviewing the various needs in the referendum, and then what kind of potential options there might be moving forward in light of the referendum defeat from last year. So as everyone here knows, the Board of Education undertook that process, reviewed capital priorities with the architects, and then in September presented a series of options to the public. So we sent a letter home, of course, to all residents in Chatham Borough and Chatham Township. We email blasted the letter as well to any parents whose email addresses we had on file. The good folks in the local press ran a couple of reminders/stories about the survey, and in addition to the survey, we held 4 informational sessions, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, and we had community members who came and spoke with various members of the Board of Education about their ideas and opinions regarding capital needs in the district.
Mike, if I could just stop you
Yep.
for 1 second. I'm sorry.
Sure,
Was that 30 altogether?
altogether.
Thank you.
So the survey was open for 30 days, and we ended up with approximately 1,260 respondents. So I'm going to just move through then the results of the survey, and I'm going to go in order of percentage of support for each proposal. So in other words, the first item that is on this screen, which involved a renovation of the middle school auditorium, was the option or question, item that received the greatest amount of support from the people who took the survey. Overall, of all of the options, yes. Mr. Connors.
Tell us what percentage of the 1,200 people said?
Here you go.
Can we be on mic, please, for comments?
Sure. So Mr. Connors just asked what percentage of the folks responded in which way. And so what I'm going to do is just put a slide up that just repeats what the option was, and then I'll have a slide for every option that shows what the response was from the people who took the survey. So middle school auditorium, as you can see, this was a straight-up renovation, essentially, stripping down the current auditorium, putting on a new roof, putting in an HVAC unit for the first time, an air conditioning unit for the first time, taking out the seats and the asbestos tile flooring, basically a total renovation of the current space. As you can see, 67% of respondents indicated that they would support doing that, and 16% indicated that they would not support that. Then we asked a question about the high school / Lafayette Avenue School auditorium, and there were 3 options that were presented in the survey. One was just a straight renovation, again, kind of like a gut job where you take everything out and then you redo the ceiling, the floor, the seats, the whole 9 yards. Then there was a second option, which involved the renovation plus bumping out a little bit toward the circle to pick up some space in the lobby and a few extra seats, about 50 extra seats. Then the third option was just to knock the whole thing down and put up a new facility right in its current spot, but a brand new facility. So on that score, the first option, the option of straight up renovation, was the one that received the greatest amount of support. The second option, which was the renovation plus the minor expansion, received about a 50% indication of support. And the third option, as you can see, the brand new building did not receive very much support. The third set of options, one of which garnered the third next greatest amount of support, involved looking at adding on to the Chatham Middle School for the purpose of building some STEM labs. And you'll recall that the original referendum that was defeated last year included 3 to 4 computer labs / flexible spaces, instructional spaces that would have been built in the current middle school auditorium. So when we met with architects last spring, we looked at alternative options to that, and there were 3 that were presented. So one would be just a straight, kind of simple addition behind the current auditorium where our current tech lab is in the building. The estimate for that was about $3.2 million. Then there was a second option that included a bigger addition, which also would have included professional office space. And then there was a third option that would be a full addition on one of the wings at the middle school, and that would cost about $6.5 million. So of those 3 options, similar to like the high school auditorium where just the straight renovation garnered a pretty good amount of support, in this case, the smallest addition that would accommodate 3 to 4 instructional rooms, instructional spaces, computer labs, garnered about 63%, and both of the other options garnered very little support. Cougar Field then, you recall, this was an unchanged item from last year's defeated referendum, about $1.5 million toward addressing a lot of the infrastructure at Cougar Field. So this option received about 57% where 57% of respondents indicated that they would support renovations to Cougar Field, 28% said they would not support renovations to Cougar Field, and 16% of respondents said maybe. Then we've discussed and identified sort of the whole back area of the high school where we don't have very good grading in terms of drainage, and we have limited use of the fields because of the fact that they're natural grass and that they take a little bit longer to use in the spring than an artificial turf field would. So we had 4 different options. The first option was basically putting turf on about half or 2/3 of the area behind the high school. The second option was doing that, but using a natural fill that's lighter in color, that doesn't absorb as much heat. The third option was putting turf on the entire field, and the fourth option was putting turf on the entire field with the natural lighter color fill. You can see that the first option, which was partial turf, the same kind of turf we would have at Cougar Field, received about 39% of a yes response to about 37% of a no response, so it was about 50-50. And every option thereafter that became more expensive had an even lower yes response and an even higher no response. And then we go to the elementary classrooms. This is the last of the the questions. So one of the options was to build 6 classrooms at Milton and Washington. This again was one of the questions or one of the items from the original referendum that was defeated last year. And then there was a second option, which would have been to build classrooms at all of the elementary schools so as to free up a greater amount of space. And you can see those 2 questions both had about the same level of yes, no support, 39 to 38 for the 6 classroom option, and then 39 to 43 for the 8 classroom option. So to give you a summary of everything, the items on the left of your screen are the items on the left of the screen are the items that received the greatest amount of approval or preliminary approval from the respondents to the survey. The items on the right obviously are the ones with the greatest response of no on the survey. And you can just kind of read right along the bottom of the screen there which items garnered the greatest amount of support via the survey. And by the way, this PowerPoint as well as all of the individual responses, the comments that people posted in the survey and the open-ended questions will be posted on our website at midnight tonight, so it will be available. In terms of the written responses, we had about 228 responses to a question about are there any other capital improvements that you might like to see the Board of Education consider, and we had another open-ended question about is there anything else you would like to share, regarding anything in the process. So all of those responses, like I said, will be posted. Some of the items, this isn't a comprehensive list here, but some of the items that popped up with some frequency on the open-ended questions were the condition and appearance of Chatham High School, the facade, the entrance, the windows in the front portion of the building, the cafeteria at the high school, its seating capacity, was there any way to enlarge that to be able to seat more students? Roofing is a general area of concern, and roofing is something that we've tried to, that we include in our capital improvement process. Parking, of course, which we know about. Many of our schools are tight on parking space, and the size of the CHS Media Center and whether or not we can expand the size of that. So moving forward, tonight's November 2nd. This is the first time the Board of Education is seeing all of the feedback. The survey just closed on Friday. I closed it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's, fresh. November 11th is our next Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, where this obviously will be a point of discussion. And then our next Board of Education meeting occurs in 2 weeks, and then at some point thereafter, if the board wanted to consider a second referendum, based on some of that feedback, then we'd be looking probably over the next month or two where those kinds of decisions would have to be made.
And the next opportunities are, say, for example, March and September?
Yes. So the next 2 times the board could consider putting forward a referendum would be March of 2016 or September of 2016.
I have a question. Of the 6 categories of projects, 4 of them were north of 50%, 57% or higher. 2 of them fell south of 50%. So assuming we're going to look more closely at the top of the list that garnished more than 50%, of those 4 projects, the high school renovation, we already have plans for, by and large.
The auditorium renovation?
The auditorium, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
You mean it from an architectural
From an
standpoint?
architectural point of
Yes.
view and what we need to submit to the Department of Education.
Correct. That's right.
There's not a tremendous amount of additional work or expense incurred in that particular project.
That's right.
And the same holds true for the Cougar Field project.
That's
correct?
right.
That has largely been unchanged from its original form, what was submitted to the Department of Education previously. That's a true statement?
Yes.
So then the remaining 2, and Matt, I apologize if I'm jumping in here, because this will eventually fall to the Finance Committee. Of the remaining 2, the STEM labs, how much additional work is required to get those to the point where they're even ready to be put to the public for a referendum question?
Peter might have to help me with that, but I think the architect would probably need to know at the absolute latest, the end of November. Let me backtrack. The answer probably depends on when if there were going to be another referendum, the timing of it. So if the timing were March, the architect would probably need to submit to the DOE, I'd say by December 1st, which would mean the architect would mean as much time as possible to develop plans over the next several weeks.
And the same is true then for the middle school?
Yes, both projects would be the same.
The same answer is the same. Is it less costly if you extend out the time, or it's a time and cost estimate? It's an hourly?
I don't think that matters.
Okay.
But if September were the next attractive date, then there would be more time.
Between more.
I know that's very complicated.
There's more time between now and September than
Sophisticated
now.
cause and effect there.
And you with your doctorate degree. Okay, understood. So I'm going to punt this to Matt since he's the chair of the finance. I just wanted to double check that I was correct in that 2 of those projects are essentially locked and loaded, and 2 need additional work before we could submit them to the Department of Education. Okay. Does anybody else have any
$12 million total spend.
on all 6 or
Oh, the 4 above 50%.
4 above 50%?
What is it for?
About $12 million. So, right, roughly?
If you went with, what, the first of everything?
Well, that's what was supported. The cheapest version of each individual increment was supported, right? Yes, the least
Yes.
expensive option
Yeah,
was
well,
supported
some
at
were
the time.
very, very tight.
For 4 of them.
I was curious, did they talk at all at the conference about full-day kindergarten? I'm just
Not at
curious
this,
to know if
not
in the
at any of the
follow-up.
sessions that I attended.
Okay.
School funding was a very big, prominent topic, and, you know, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but we're one of the districts in the state that is receiving the lowest percentage of the funding, of what the funding formula dictates. We get about 45% of our direct aid. So there was a lot of discussion amongst legislators, including Steve Sweeney, about the fact that the formula for funding hasn't been run in 5 years, and they need to either redesign the formula or they need to at least get everyone at the same percentage. So if they can only afford to fund 60% of the formula, some legislators believe then every district should get 60% of what the formula indicates. Right now we get 45%, some districts get 90, some districts get 100. The problem is politically that's very difficult to do because you're going to have to take money from some people to give money to others.
At least they're discussing it.
They are.
Pete, the only one that won't get potential debt relief on is Cougar Field, right?
Yes,
And then the other ones would be potentially 40% debt relief, How much is it?
potentially, because all of the other ones.
40%
Or
debt relief.
education
So if
based.
we get lucky on that, just call it a 10 figure, so our net figure could be around 7.2 million.
Although you have
That depends, that's the reason we would need to, we have to submit to the DOE. One of the reasons they tell us what percentage of each project would qualify for debt relief. So some of the projects, you know, perhaps the whole project, all of it would qualify for debt relief, so 40% off the top number. But there are other projects where the DOE might indicate, well, only half of this would qualify because only half of it deals with ADA compliance issues. So
we'll know that ahead of time, though,
we
correct?
would, correct. That's part of the process of the
Probably
state
won't.
approval.
Yeah, but it's misleading in some aspects, because don't forget, we go with the headline figure, and then we have a net figure.
Yes, that's
Right, so
true.
The headline figure last time was 25 million, net figure was 21.2.
Yep.
And just to be clear, Matt, by headline, you mean with a referendum has to state the larger number, not after debt relief.
Correct, yes.
So what the voters will be voting on is the 12 million, not the,
Not the...
seven.
Yes, it'll be the gross figure, not the net figure.
correct. So that would have to be explained and,
So,
you know,
Yes.
if we look at this versus what we got last time, which would have been almost 40% across the board outside of the field things, 7 million, you're looking $70 a family tax increase.
We haven't worked out those figures yet. I mean, we're
It's gonna
not,
go
yeah,
based on what we had last time, anywhere from $60 to $80 per family for all this per year, because interest rates haven't changed.
back of the envelope.
we'd have to, we'd
Actually,
have
we did-
to,
No, it's probably going to be higher than that because we had tax relief figures in there that should have been now given back to the community as they should have gotten. So it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that. So we're looking around 90 to 100.
if the board chooses to move forward with another referendum, we would have to talk with the bond council again. We'd have to
Crunch the
do,
numbers.
right, we'd have to take all the same kinds of steps that we took last time.
Yeah, it's probably going to, no. It's 60% less.
When is the finance committee meeting again?
16th, next
No.
week.
11,
The
Oh,
11th.
11th.
next Wednesday night.
16th is the meeting.
Is that like a 4-hour meeting?
I don't know, but I hope not.
There's not one scheduled on the, after it, right?
There's a
Policy
policy
meeting
and
right after.
finance meeting, and I forget which one is first.
And just,
We talked about it the last meeting.
Finance is first. Finance is at 6:30 and policies at 7:30, but we've got Jim Finn coming to discuss health insurance related issues at 7.
yeah, I don't think it's going to turn around in a day, do you?
No. No, so Matt, then, based on that, do you anticipate a recommendation to the full board in the next meeting or several meetings?
Well, we need to figure out in some way to get full input from the board. So I think we go back from the recommendation from the finance committee up, and then we go to a full board level discussion, and then move forward.
Okay. So you're going to come back with a preliminary recommendation at our next meeting, and we'll discuss it here in the public sector?
Yeah.
at the board level?
Correct.
Which to move forward in
Yeah.
what manner?
And I think now that the community is going to see these poll results, you may have more community participation if we trumpet it enough at the next board meeting as to what outstanding or other underlying issues we need to address. But
We talked a lot about this at the last meeting. We had a pretty lengthy finance meeting.
Okay,
And went over.
so you're
We
further
had a
along.
lot of,
We've
yeah,
got-
we've already gone through a lot of this.
the only one that made a late inning rally, a Kansas City Royal rally, sorry, my friends, was the STEM Lab. Because originally, in that when we saw this 3 weeks ago, that didn't have that high of level of support. So that's one. If we looked at it from a perception of where we were 3 weeks ago and above 50%, STEM was not there. It was very close, but the other three were clearly already out in front. So that's the one that kind of not surprised me, but it came out of definitely had a lot of late support. What were the final figures? We were 1,000 3 weeks ago. What was the final number?
1,200?
1263,
That was it.
or something like that.
Huh.
So it looks like from the time frame that we're most likely going to do this in September, because if we're not going to be meeting until,
I mean, in all honesty,
maybe just logistically, the way, right? Because
I mean, without talking to Matt and the finance committee, I mean,
I don't see how we do it.
I don't know how, I don't see the benefit in trying to get it done in March, but again, I'm gonna,
I mean, I think we also, as a board, we took a lot of flack last time about rushing into things. So maybe we could take a more methodical approach and move forward, at a regulated pace.
And I agree with that. I just wanted everyone to make sure that we understand that if we do that, then we lose, if we won't be able to start anything until the following summer.
but even if we did it in March, I don't know how many projects we'd be able to start over that summer timeframe anyway.
Well, we have the plans for two already.
Yeah, although
Then you have to go through the whole process of bid, and that's a long, arduous process. So I don't know. Honestly, in all said and done, we probably weren't starting these more quote-unquote major construction projects to the summer of 17 anyway, if we did it in March or September. That'd be a good gamble, right?
Your estimate is probably adequate, because if you did it in March, then by the time you went out and,
Right.
even if you sold the bonds and did the bids at the same time, it would be very tight time frame to have something start the summer of 16, or late summer, and obviously, none of these are gonna be done over a 2-month window.
right.
Well, how long would it take to do the baseball field, Chatham High School athletic field?
That was the low end of the
They didn't
support
even have
mechanism.
support.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
below 50%.
Yeah.
That was below 40, wasn't it?
It's right at 40.
It didn't have any support.
But I'd only add that the only ones, the Cougar Field is dependent upon a start that coincides or doesn't coincide with seasons ending and starting. But the auditorium, the stuff that's interior, we could start that in the middle of a school year. So, I mean, January 2017 or whatever the time frame would be. It's not like we have to wait summer to summer before we begin most of these projects. Most of these projects would be done indoors. We'd have to make arrangements and accommodations for our programming. But some of them, they're going to take longer than 2 months, like Peter said, and they're going to be done in a portion of the school year. So we're not dependent upon the summer time frame for most of them.
Any other questions for Dr.
No.
D'Souza?
I'd just like to make a comment. I just think that, we're discussing the referendum, and to me, it's kind of disheartening that there's all of maybe 7 people out there. It seems that this is like almost as business as usual, we discuss items, and it's not until they're ready to be put on some poll that people start having problems with that. So I find it very disheartening. I find it disheartening that you did all the work that you did. I thought your presentation was fantastic, and there's nobody here. It just seems that they come late and say, "Oh, we didn't know, you didn't do anything," and that's all. That's my only comment. If you wanna be informed, you got to participate. You got to come, and thank you for the people that are here. But You would think that there'd be more people. So I just find that disheartening.
I was hoping that more than 30 people would have shown up also for the, thank you Denise, because you were at the last session, so you get credit for sure. But 30 people total, 2 sessions in the evening, 2 sessions during the day, and 30 people showed up. So that was unfortunate as well, Mr. Nonamaker.
But I will say that 1260, I think, that's a good response rate from the survey. I wouldn't have predicted necessarily that it would have been that high before we did this.
Out
I
of
think,
13,000 residents, you're happy with 1,200?
well, 1,200, when I advertise like crazy for a special event, you know, about substance abuse, or the superintendent is going to talk, and only 40 or 50 people show up, you know, maybe I'm biased because the turnout is usually low when we have evening presentations and such, but 1,200 at least gives us a good feel. I think it's, I wish a year ago we had some of the information that, you know, I just put on the screen. It might have helped us in charting a slightly different course. So we are where we are. I'm happy that 1,200 people, you know, took the survey. It certainly gives us a clearer picture of general appetite among the survey respondents.
But who
It gives
has
us
to-
the appetite of 1,200 people.
Right.
Of the,
No, I'm so sorry.
of the 1,200, can you figure out any way to track it as to where that 1,200 group fell into? Were they high school students? Were they people who have kids in the system? Were they, you know, people who didn't have kids in the system? Were they the younger kids? I mean, I can connect the dots and tell you where I figured most of the people came from who voted for it. But was there any way to track that?
There's no way to track that. I would say if you read the 500 comments, you can see that it was a very diverse set of opinions that took the survey.
Okay.
It's not a overwhelming, there's one particular group or contingency that's letting their opinion be known. It's all over the place, all over the map.
All right, because you could draw certain conclusions just from the top projects. And you could draw a conclusion as to where the people who submitted those, where they fit, in what category.
Well, and you also have to wonder, I mean, I see repeatedly people talking about the CHS bathrooms needing to be renovated. Apparently, they haven't been there to see that the CHS bathrooms have been renovated, quite a few of them. I mean, I don't know who's answering the survey, but clearly some of them either didn't go to back to school night or aren't paying any attention to the fact that we are improving that. You know, some of the stuff just seems like people are not in tune with what's happening. Maybe they don't have kids in the district, I don't know. Maybe they did have kids in the district, but who knows?
I was surprised the elementary classrooms didn't have a little more traction given the full-day kindergarten, because it's a non-starter. I mean, full-day kindergarten is a non-starter without either a significant decrease in enrollment, which we're not seeing, or physical space. So I was surprised at that's in the 30s. But,
So was I.
I was too.
Yeah, I'm surprised too.
you know, it seemed to it had some traction for a while, and then it's now either not a priority, or those folks didn't answer the survey.
Right.
But again, just to be clear, full-day kindergarten is a non-starter without physical space and obviously the $800,000 it requires in our operating budget to run a full-day kindergarten program. So, you know, I don't see a lot of the full-day kindergartner folks here, but again, if it doesn't have support, then it can't be even considered as a referendum item.
But at the same time, that's exactly what I'm sorry, John. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, any other questions or comments? So more to follow from the Finance Committee. Mr. Gilfillan, we look forward to your next report, and more open dialogue, I guess, from the board as to how we proceed and the timeline. So projects as well as timeline moving forward. Can I ask a question? Sorry, Matt, in your preliminary discussions, was it, you talked about breaking up questions, just going one at a time, or it's still, I don't mean breaking up in a
I'm glad that became a heated
Oh, okay.
topic of discussion.
Great,
I don't
okay.
mean to be disrespectful, but it was, yes, it was discussed.
Okay.
Some people got emotional.
And I don't know that I mean necessarily from a linear, just, is there some benefits to say, just do auditoriums?
We talked about that too.
Okay, very good. So more to
It was a
follow.
long meeting.
Feel like,
Well, then are you going to have enough time at the next finance meeting if
It's going to be a struggle.
Mr. Finn is coming in at
Yeah,
7 o'clock? And do we reschedule Mr. Finn so that Matt and the finance,
Mr. Finn has to come in because for budgeting reasons.
Can we bump policy?
We may have to come in.
We
Sorry,
talked about this quite a bit.
No,
Yeah,
we were still pretty bipolar. Actually, we're really bipolar.
I think we came to kind of a.
Okay.
Right, that's the other thing. If,
I've
if,
taken meds, I'm
I
much
think
better
we've
than.
come
if the
to a
sentiment is more
conclusion.
of a lean towards September,
We have time.
there's more time as we,
As you mentioned, that there's more time between now and September than there is between now and March.
Do we have a chart for that?
We would like some graphs.
blue and red?
Shades of brown.
That's right, some differentiating charts. Okay, fantastic. Then, Matt, I look forward to your report. I don't sit on the Finance Committee, so I look forward to that. If there's no additional questions at the moment or comments, we're going to move forward. Mr. DeQuilla, it's been a long time, but your report?
I have no additional comments at this time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Then I'm going to move on to committee reports. Ms. Clark is a teacher in another district, and she has parent-teacher conferences tonight, so I will do Personnel Committee report, which is, I only volunteered because there is no report because we haven't met since the last meeting. Had it been a harder report, I would have asked Kim to do it. So there is no personnel report at this time. So moving along to Ms. Kenny for curriculum.
Yes, the curriculum committee met before this meeting tonight at 6:30. Dennis Sharon, who is the math supervisor, joined us today, and he gave us an overview of the math program for the K through 12s. And in summary, the K through 5 programs are utilizing the Envision Math program, and students are utilizing various online tools as well to improve problem-solving skills and recognition of math sets. At CMS, there was a lot of we had, as you recall from last year, there was a lot of parent concern about the CMS math programs, and since Dennis joined us in July, he has done a lot to reach out to the CMS community. He held 11 one-hour sessions with parents to go over and to improve communication and to go over the goals of the program. He created a new website that has gotten very positive feedback. It has a lot of tools on there to help both students and the parents with homework topics and problem solving. At CHS, we we are going to be reviewing textbooks and the use of the textbooks within CHS, and we discussed some specific classes to address different populations of students. And I think that was it, unless anyone else wants to jump in.
A lot of
Oh,
confrontation.
I'm sorry, and we also had a brief update on health and wellness. But I think there's more to come on that at our next meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Kenny or Ms. Chase? On the
More
curriculum?
from an anecdotal perspective, I have bumped into parents, I guess, Chatham Middle School, and they seem to be very pleased with how the math program has evolved, and we're very appreciative as to the assistance and guidance and the steps that the administration took, and we're very complimentary of the whole process as to where it is today as opposed to where it was several months ago. So I don't know if that's reached you people, but again, Stop and Shop, you talk to a lot of different people.
And it's trending up on Facebook, right?
That's exactly right.
But
It's
it-
trending on Facebook. Dennis Sharon is very well liked. People are very happy with what he's doing.
So, congrats.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chase, for bringing that to the forefront. Any other questions on either the math or any other curriculum item? Seeing none, moving over to finance and facilities.
We met on October the 14th. The number one issue, of course, was the situation that we discussed now with Mike in the public session in terms of the referendum. We discussed the development of the committee for negotiations with the teachers, as their contract is up June 30th of this year, so we will begin that process for a new contract for the teachers to replace their existing 3-year deal. We did have the auditors come in and to discuss our preliminary report. We passed with flying colors. I believe we had 2 little minor issues that, in my opinion, weren't worth the airtime. The one big issue that has not been decided yet, and I believe needs to be decided by December the 7th, which is how we potentially carry the pension liability on our balance sheet. There was information due on October the 31st, and I'm not quite sure, Pete, if that was followed through.
We did not hear anything.
We did not hear anything from the state, so we will submit our audited report, I would assume, without that pension liability on it, correct?
Yes, so just so everyone kind of has a broad, general understanding of it, and Peter can fill in the details. The state is requiring for the first time that certain liabilities associated with certain pensions that our employees carry, or certain of our employees carry, be listed in the audit report. The problem is we don't have those numbers. The state has to supply them to us. The state has not supplied them to us. The state doesn't have them yet. Yet, by statute in 18A, the audit has to be approved and submitted by December 7th. So there is some widespread concern across the school districts in New Jersey. No school district has received from the state the pension calculations. So no school district can submit and have its board approve its annual audit, which is required to be done by December 7th. And from the auditor's perspective, they usually space out and schedule all of their completed audits and their presentations at board meetings, pretty much beginning September 1st right up through December 7th. So we're now November 2nd. The state has not furnished us with the figures yet. So there's a lot of concern among the districts. And if you don't submit and approve the audit by December 7th, then you are automatically penalized in, I think, both CUSAC and the budgetary process. Again, Peter can handle those details better. So we're in a holding pattern, and we only have one other meeting before December 7th. So if the state doesn't release the figures by November 16th, we will have no other choice but to run afoul of the statute, even though that's not our fault.
Yeah, well, I would imagine there's going to have to be some form of clarification by the state or some form of delay by the state before the process happens, because there's 600 districts that need to file these audited returns. So I would imagine that's going to be pushed back probably for a year. I mean, that would be the simple, logical thing to do.
Districts are asking for that all over the place, but the problem is the only body that can alter the statute is the legislature, and they're not going to get a bill and anything done in time for December 7th.
So we'll all run afoul, the 600.
Yeah, well, you know what, as Sam Malone said in Cheers, sometimes if you ignore your problems, they go away. We might be in that situation going forward, guys.
But I thought we also, would you mind, Matt, because we're on this topic? I thought I had asked, can you just submit like a preliminary?
We did.
We can do something just to get some, like a best guess. I'm sorry, Matt, once you follow.
They did a stab in the dark figure on it, and they put in a $20 million figure, which is when, Rich, we all started walking through kind of scenario analysis in terms of what our potential number could be. And when we started kind of peeling back the onion as to what our potential liability, when we compared it to the existing state pension fund, existing state healthcare costs, liabilities, and things like that, we started to come up with numbers of around $80 to $120 million that could potentially be put on our balance sheet, maybe even higher. So the only reason I would like to say that, I'm glad you brought that up, is because I do believe that this board needs to understand what the complete lack of visibility, transparency is in terms of what our potential pension liability and healthcare cost liabilities for our pensioners is going forward, and how this potentially could come back onto our operating responsibility in terms of overall revenues / cash dedicated to service these liabilities going forward, and potentially how could that impact our operating budget. Right now, if you look at it in a world of a 2% budget, and we have to bring these liabilities back onto our balance sheet when we have a very fixed revenue increase year after year, yet we've got a massive increase in costs underlying that pool of revenues, we could see that there is potential for significant cuts. I do know that if you listen to the Pension Reform Committee down in Trenton, they do believe this is revenue neutral to the individual districts and towns. I have done significant work on it and shared that with Pete and Mike, and continue to fail to see how that works. So
this also was supposed to have been a lot more transparency back in July of this year. And originally, when this deal came out, they supposedly had the support of the teachers union. That support has now been pulled. I'm not quite sure whether or not it's gone contentious in terms of the teachers unions and what this pension committee recommended, or if it's just kind of gone quiet. But this is a massive overhang on us that we will need to address, and what could potentially become our biggest issue here as a board in the not-too-distant future.
One more question, if I may. In terms of scheduling another, because of the deadline, for the paperwork to be submitted, should we be scheduling another meeting in the event that something comes down on the 11th hour, that at least we can have a board meeting ready to vote and approve it?
We could do that on an emergency basis.
Yeah, just, I mean, what's the timeline in which to make it? I mean, the date of, I think you said, what was the date, Mike?
December 7th,
December,
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor Day? So, December 5th, I don't know. I mean, is there something that we could schedule in the event that we do have to get here and the legislature doesn't push it and we have an emergency session?
We have a meeting scheduled for December 7th,
Oh.
so we could put a preliminary one in November 30th, if we needed. I mean, I don't know if that helps much.
What's the penalty for filing false
The 8th of December.
audited documents?
Or good faith?
I think that's enough.
That's the point I was trying to make to me, is that I think that if the districts are going to be held to a standard, that the standard is just getting a good faith number. Just say, okay, we think this is what ours is going to be, and put it in bold print that this is, you know, preliminary analysis, since we don't know the backup data. You know, and I know we were talking to the accountant, and he wasn't 100% certain as to, but I still think that may be a safer route to take, is this is a preliminary number, we have to have something in by that date.
Just plug the whole-
I think he
Yeah.
said this, is he's got two sets of documents ready
Yeah.
to go right now.
He does.
And so one is if the state comes back and in some way gives relief towards this date, and if they don't, then we've got a second set of documents that will be put in on a preliminary basis.
I think all of our discussions are very well warranted, but I think the next week to 10 days to see if we get any information from the state should hopefully provide the guidance we need. And, you know, we're kind of making a plan and we don't know, we're trying to figure out how to, if we were playing a card game, we're trying to figure out how we're going to bet before we get our cards. You know,
I think Mr. Connors is just suggesting
Yeah,
we
no.
schedule a meeting that Friday night, even if it's for 5 minutes, that 5 of us can make to potentially push some numbers through.
we may need to do that if we get clarification from the state. That, or we all come here Thanksgiving morning, bring a turkey leg, and then go off on our way.
No,
We have-
we have to give out notice
We have
to
to
the
go,
public of the
we
meeting.
need the notice.
So that's where I was coming
Yes.
from, getting the notice out. If we're gonna do something, let's make sure we have enough time to do it, and maybe we can always pull it. But I do think the preliminary report is something that I'd like to revisit again with the gentleman.
I will reach out to the auditor tomorrow and then see if he has any potential update or any guidance that he wants to offer, or what he's doing with his other clients.
So that's not something that could be done in an executive session?
No.
And then last but not least, the basically Chatham reality TV show that is the Washington Avenue driveway issue continues to work its way forward, and there's not really much to update there due to the fact that there's going to be another meeting tomorrow with Mr. DeQuilla. So we'll have more update on that at the next meeting. We meet on, as we stated before, November the 11th to a full agenda.
And who's attending tomorrow's meeting? Besides you. Who are you meeting with, just yourself? It should go well. I love those meetings, they're the best. I love a conference call where nobody else shows
Me,
up.
myself, and I.
That's it. I do some of my best work by myself. I have some of my best discussions. It's myself, Mr. Falzarano, the Washington Avenue neighbor. And I'm not sure who else, probably Vince Denave, the township engineer. And I don't know if anybody else is, who else, Mr. Falzarano invited.
Okay.
It's at 10 o'clock at the conference room, I believe 301, same meeting spot as normal.
Okay, but there's been no additional movement as far as costs, right, Matt?
Nothing, put it this way, since we went to and had the meeting,
We have
That,
some 7:30
we
morning.
attended the 7:30 meeting, nothing is, the township was talking, and then they wanted to have another meeting with the neighbor.
The borough.
The borough, I'm sorry, the borough was discussing it, and wanted to have another meeting with the neighbor, which is tomorrow.
Then my question is, why are you attending? If the borough wants to have a meeting,
I guess he wanted a district input or a district representation.
okay.
I'll be
If
there.
you're going to attend,
No, I'll be in the air.
you'll be in the air. Okay, don't make any promises
Talk to
None.
myself.
Never will.
without talking to Matt and his finance people.
Although he may want to have the Gilfillan Drive.
Yeah, really. Okay. Very good, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gilfillan? Matt, other than the 52-page report that came out in February that explicitly stated the words cost neutral or revenue neutral 12 times and implied it 12 other times, has there been any additional?
No, there's been no additional.
Nothing,
updates.
zero, just reports in the paper that we keep reading. Just that was it?
There's just been rebuttals from third parties, there's been
Okay.
analysis done by papers, but
Nothing official has come down from either that committee or any other official committee. Okay, thank you. Policy and planning, Mr. Franz?
We haven't met since the last meeting, and we are scheduled for next, November 11th,
November 11th?
so next Wednesday. If we don't get published.
If there's time permits.
Well, hopefully they'll bump you before you get to the green room. Moving on to the liaison reports, Mr. Connors for Chatham Borough.
Nothing to report from the borough.
Ms. Clark is not here. Athletic boosters, Mr. Connors.
Chatham Athletic Boosters will be meeting tomorrow, and I will report then.
Excellent, thank you. The music theater boosters, I'm going to provide that report. So starting with the marching band, they recently concluded their competitive season with a gold rating at the NJMEA State Marching Band Festival on October 17th. They also received special honors for best visual effects. We have a saber tossing senior, Sarah Lowe, who won an award, and also a soloist, a sophomore, for the electric violin, Eric Tano. So congratulations to both of those students and the marching band. In addition to the football games and the competitions that the marching band performs in, they also gave 3 additional performances throughout the district. One was for Unity Day. It was a parade held at the middle school on October 8th. They also participated in the first annual Cougar Fest, which was like a field day for the students just before Cougar Weekend. So they performed there, and the final performance outside of their normal competitions, they performed the theme to Rocky at the 4-5 Lafayette School before the mini marathon for the kids, the athletes, as they started. They continuously played the theme Rocky, which is very inspirational, although none of them were born at that time. Band director Brian Conti for the marching band, he noted the outstanding leadership of the students, drum majors Brianna Peterson and also Alex Stewart, in addition to outstanding section leaders that helped lead the entire band along, and the roadies that volunteered to help move the props on and off the field, the staff members, and also the administrative support. So Mr. Conti thanks all of those folks. Moving off the marching band topic, Elizabeth Stewart, she's a sophomore at Chatham High School. She represented the Chatham High School with the all-national choir in a performance at Nashville, Tennessee. Elizabeth performed on Wednesday, October 28th with the best of other high school singers throughout the United States. So congratulations again to Elizabeth Stewart. The Chatham High School All-State Musicians, they will travel to Atlantic City this week for their final rehearsal, and then an evening performance at the Historic Convention Hall. The ballroom setting is where they're going to perform. It will take place they will also perform later this month at NJ PAC. We have 1 violinist and 4 singers who will proudly represent Chatham High School, and it's a very prestigious performance, and it's highly competitive, so to be selected for this is really a huge deal. So congratulations to our performers. Moving on to the drama portion of our program, the Chatham High School Fall Play will be presented on November 20th to 21st at 7:30 in the Chatham High School Auditorium, and the Senior Citizens performance will take place on the Thursday at 3:30 with a dinner as well, and the National Honor Society usually serves the dinner to our senior citizens, and the cast and the crew walk around and after the play and talk to some of the guests. The play, the full play is going to be Look Homeward Angels. It's based on a 1929 Thomas Wolfe novel, so you can buy tickets at the door, or you can also buy them online, or the students can buy them during the day at, I believe, at lunchtime. The play is under the direction of Laura Russo, and the technical director is John Latota. Did I say that right? Latota? Latona. Thank you very much. I apologize. And if you wouldn't mind, please mark your calendars for the upcoming concert season. Beginning on, we're going to do 25 performances spanning grades 1 through 12 between December 1st and January 15th. So please keep an eye for some of those performances. 25 performances in essentially what's going to be 4 to 5 weeks. Good luck, Mr. Biasi.
And Ms. Weber, the nationally acclaimed singer that you mentioned is going to appear at an upcoming board meeting to sing the national anthem for us.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
That's in the pipeline.
Is that Ms. Stewart?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Very good. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Fantastic. That's great. I can't wait. Very good. Chatham Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny?
Yes, just update that CF is currently working hard on the third annual trivia night. They're very excited that it was, again, a sold-out event. It's going to be held at November 15th at, November 14th at Fish and Game.
Are we gonna have a team again?
We are. I was going to say, yes, it's going to be a combined team between the board and the administration. So far, signed up is hopefully you and Mr. Connors, and Ms. Weber, and myself. Did I get everybody? Yeah. And Dr. LaSousa, Ms. Chase, and Dr. D'Elia as well.
Very good. Excellent.
Oh, and Michelle Clark is also coming.
And what about Mr. DeQuill?
Yeah, I know, he did.
Taquita?
You're a trivia expert.
Only if you're good at trivia. Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Nonamaker for Recreation?
Nothing to report.
Very good. Thank you, sir. And Ms. Cronin for the PTO District Cabinet meeting?
We haven't met either.
Haven't met. Very good. Thank you. I make a motion to pass many minutes. So September 15th, public session, the September 16th, public session, the October 5th, public session, and the October 7th, public session.
I second the motion.
Just one correction, we do not need to vote on the October 7th. The minutes are just written to say that there was no meeting since there
Oh,
was
right.
never a quorum.
Yep, we did
So
not
we
have a
only need to
quorum.
have 3 separate votes on 9:15, 9:16, and 10:05.
As amended, I'll second the motion.
Okay. Excellent. October 2nd, 7th is off. And
The meeting for 9:15, just to remember,
yeah, could you remind who was in
Um,
attendance?
Mr. Gilfil and Mr. Connors and Ms. Cronin all need to abstain, so since I
That was the 15th?
That was
That
the
was
15th.
9:15. How are you going to vote? I will just call the attendees. Ms. Chigarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Franz? Yes. Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Nonamaker?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Meeting agenda passes 503.
Very good. September 16th?
All right. Mr. Connors, Ms. Cronin, and Mr. Franz are required to abstain. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Chigarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Nonamaker?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Again, pass 503.
October 5th?
Just as a reminder, Ms. Kenny is the only one absent. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Chigarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz? Yes. Ms. Kenny abstained. Mr. Nonamaker?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Passes 701.
It was a Tuesday, Wednesday.
Other comments?
Okay, so we have our first opportunity for public comments, and then we'll go through our regular agenda, and then we open it up again at the end of the meeting after board business for additional public comments. If you wouldn't mind just signing in at the microphone, there's a sheet and hopefully a piece of paper.
There is.
If you would just introduce yourself and where you're from, borough, township, your address.
Mom is Jane, you're chomping at the bit to see it.
You would have signed in, too.
Oh, you're here, Denise, you have to talk.
Jane Devlin, Chatham Township. The decision district-wide to be homework-free during the Thanksgiving break, November 25th through 30th, and Christmas, December 23 through January 1st, announced at the last Board of Ed meeting, is not only welcomed, but one tangible example among many that administration and its board takes under advisement matters brought before them. It is also aligned with the district's health and wellness initiative. It is my understanding, per discussion with Dr. LaSousa, that no teacher shall be assigning any homework during the blackout breaks, including projects, nor shall any due dates for projects be immediately following these holiday breaks, except and unless the project was given 3 weeks before the onset of the break period. Hopefully, no tests are scheduled immediately following breaks because studying is homework too. Clearly, the district has turned the corner from early stages of listening to action regarding homework. Hopefully, this positive directive represents incremental steps of a comprehensive plan concerning change around homework rather than the totality of the district's plan. I am being open that this is so and that this is a springboard to change because I find administration and its board are reasonable, intelligent, and measured when making recommendations and decisions. Therefore, I look forward to advancing the homework issue even further. With that in mind, perhaps the next logical step to ensure the homework-free breaks are viable is to issue a memorandum to all teachers informing them of the blackout dates and parameters around them, including for projects. This will allow time to adjust schedules, guard against communication snafus, as well as to ensure there are no inconsistencies or misinterpretations. November 4 is 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. December 2nd is 3 weeks before Christmas, I believe. Although, bear in mind, if every teacher piles on projects before break in addition to routine nightly homework to compensate for these blackout periods, then we are just moving around the children's stressors rather than truly alleviating them. Parents need to receive the communication too, so they can, for example, help their younger grade schoolers time manage, so they know they can advocate for their child if homework shows up during break, and so they won't look incredulously at their teenager when told, nope, no homework at all. Further, students should be alerted and systematically told of the upcoming blackout periods, particularly high school and middle schoolers who may have projects. They need to know if the project was assigned 3 weeks ahead of the break. It is in sincere hope they do not wait until homework-free holidays to do it. Certainly, the recent determination made by administration announced at the last board meeting sends the healthy message to our students that we understand all they are juggling and navigating every day. None of us are better off when we wear the busy badge 24/7, especially developing children and adolescents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Dr. LaSousa, I don't remember a full blackout, but
Yeah.
maybe you can clarify.
Exactly. Let me just clarify that at the beginning of the last meeting, I reported out that we've spoken about homework and student wellness, student anxiety, a whole range of issues numerous times over the past year as an administrative team. And just prior to the last board meeting, we had met again as an administrative team. And the school, I was summarizing what the schools have been doing to take steps toward making sure that what kids are doing is appropriate from a work level or workload standpoint, and that the schools are, according to their developmental place in the continuum in our K-12 district, doing to ensure that students are progressing appropriately and not being overwhelmed and so forth. And it was the high school and the middle school who had signaled to me that they were not assigning significant tests and projects and the like over the big breaks of the year, unless an assignment had been given to kids 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks or more ahead of time. But I do not plan on sending any kind of memorandum to every teacher or to every parent that this is an absolute, hard and fast rule. I'd rather rely on the schools and the people that are in the schools who are working with the kids every day, and continue to have the discussion so that we are making incremental steps, hopefully sometimes more than incremental, and significant steps towards addressing student learning needs. But that is coming, I believe that has to come to a certain extent from the people who are doing the work with the children on a day in, day out basis. And those are our teachers and our administrators and supervisors at the building level.
So you're not mandating a absolute blackout for the...
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. But yet working toward...
Sensible, reasonable issues, and I can tell you one of the concerns most discussed at our last administrative meeting was exactly what Ms. Devlin had stated about just, if we think of a balloon and you squeeze the balloon and the air goes in two different directions, but it's the same size balloon with the same amount of air in it, we don't want to restrict assignments on certain dates just so that there are even more assignments on the 2 or 3 or 4 dates leading up to that date. And we want to be careful about that. At the high school, that's especially challenging because of AP types of deadlines in the course of a school year. But again, that's more reason where I think it's important to be deferential to a certain degree to the teachers and the principals and supervisors that are working directly with students.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Go to Hamilton on Thursday. My younger
No,
daughter.
Matt, I thought...
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions on that? No? Mr. Barmakian?
Ed Bormakian, Chattanboro. I was just wondering if Mr. Gilfillan could tell us if, now that they had the survey, is the Finance Committee going to use that as their guide to what they're going to propose?
We're going to give significant consideration to the results of the poll.
And if something gets less than 50%, what?
I think you struggle to see whether or not you could garner support on a open referendum vote for something that lies below 50%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Bezralian, Chatham Township. I just wanted to say thank you for the numerous additional steps in the process that you've brought into being around the question of the referendum, both the board and the administration, the extra work and time that it went into it. In addition to the letter and to the survey, you all took time to do the 4 information sessions, the dialogue sessions with the community, as well as the presentation tonight, which I thought was really useful and interesting. I'm actually really encouraged by the number of people who filled out the survey. I don't remember what the percentage of people is who votes in the school board election, but if about 10% of the adults in the community responded to the survey, I'm thinking that's not too far off from the percentage of some elections who voted. So thank you for, and I think we also show all the students in the district that when there's a lot of intense dialogue and maybe competition to bring out your supporters and yell the loudest, we also needed to introduce, to cool things off a little bit, to gather information, to reach out broadly, to gather data. I'm so glad that you took that step to inform the decision-making process. So I trust the board and the administration and the community to go forward in the way that's best for all of us and our young people. So just a thank you is the message from me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bezralian.
We never get any of those. Yeah.
You were going to get a clap.
We never get any of those.
Kim wants you to come back again.
Kelly Loofborough, Chatham Borough. I just want to step up as a Chatham High School rep for one of the few times that we do, that as we look at homework, that we also consider athletics on days that we have off. Some athletics this last Monday were in the middle of the day, 1 to 3, which and not announced until the Friday before. So it really took away the family day.
Columbus Day, or you mean, not this Monday? I'm sorry, Kelly.
Right, 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I was gonna say, I sent my kids to school, I don't know where they were.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
They didn't say, they weren't received there.
Our most recent holiday.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right,
And
sorry, I
just,
apologize, Kelly.
Probably all this needed is simple reminders to the coaches that to let families know ahead of time and to maybe consider morning or evening times if they want to have those times, because it had a significant impact to a large number of families on their plans that day. And the kids refused to do things because they really felt obligated and interested in being there. So.
And Mike, Dr.
I
Lucis, is
agree.
that something that can be?
Yes, that's a good comment that
Very
I'll
good point.
take back to the administration. I can tell you we have reduced the number of days and practices that we permit teams to, reduced number of days we permit teams to practice or play on days when school is closed over the past 3 years.
Okay.
During holidays, days that are 12, that are holidays for our 12-month employees where we don't bring custodial staff in just for the purpose of opening up a gym or making sure a locker room is open. So this is an issue that we have discussed, and I'll bring this feedback to the high school.
And the other thing, a lot of times people will go away if it's a long weekend, so if they are gonna have a practice, if it's
Should be
like towards the end
advance
of the
notice.
day versus the morning, so that, because you're doing school trips.
Can we get that done by Thursday?
All over it.
You know we are off Thursday, Friday.
And Dr. LaSousa, other than your balloon analogy was to not push work from one way or the other. I mean, I assume this is something that you actually can mandate without any additional stress on students since you're the boss. It doesn't have the same effect as a homework, for example, shifting.
Yes, but I don't want to speak too quickly about individual sports because there are, our cross-country team, for example, I know is going down to South Jersey at some point in the coming days. Football is at a different point than field hockey right now. So I don't have a feel right now of every athletic team's schedule. I know some sports are pretty much, wrapped up at this point.
You also have to have some degree of flexibility. There is limited availability of space
And daylight.
and daylight, and, but I think your point is just give them as much advance notice
Sure.
as possible. If you're going to have
Yep.
a practice on a Monday holiday, I don't think there's anything wrong with the coach saying, okay, we're going to have it, just giving the families a time, as opposed to saying no practices, because you got to leave that up to the coaches.
I agree.
And if you've got a championship game on a Tuesday, come on.
I completely agree, and there are variables like weather and
Yes.
whether a team is advancing in a state or county tournament. There are all kinds of variables that come into play. So I don't want to make any pronouncements, but it's an absolutely legitimate
not looking for
concern.
any.
And
No, exactly, and just make the point to them that, if you really need it, and if permitted, do it later if it works out, that's.
We want the coaches to coach, all right?
A lot of times I don't understand, kids have it, like, when they get later in the day, I'm sure.
But I don't want them to coach 48 hours a day,
Yeah.
8 days a
Sure.
week,
Yeah,
because they think it's the most important thing since sliced bread.
exactly.
Common sense, as always.
These lacrosse people.
Very good, excellent. Any additional public commentary? No? No, I just, in case you're here, in case you wanted to offer your commentary on maybe the last meeting that you attended. Yeah.
Good evening. This is Deniz Azdemir, Chatham Township. I am a licensed structural engineer, and I attended the last hearing session at the Lafayette Auditorium. Was it the auditorium? Media room.
Middle
I'm
school.
sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much for the great presentation, Dr. LaSousa. It was wonderful. And since we identified 4 top projects, and I am just repeating my interest in offering my review of the estimate, if you would like to have it. Again, since they are much simpler right now, just the simple options, and I am available if you
Thank
like
you.
me to. Thank you.
We appreciate any help, although, I mean, certainly as a licensed engineer, we have to go with we also have to follow the recommendations of those that are financially liable, legally liable,
I understand
insured,
that.
but
This
we
is just a
appreciate.
separate independent audit.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. Thank you for coming to the sessions. Thank you for coming tonight. Seeing no additional public commentary, there's nobody else left to really solicit? Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Jane. You'll be quick though, right? Because these guys are going to start beating me.
I want to thank you for the feedback on why or why not issuing a memo district-wise to teachers or making any communications to parents may not be the way to go. I do have to say, I recall from the last Board of Ed meeting that the record stated there would be, and again, I understand about the memorandum. Moving from that, I do have to say, I recall from the last Board of Ed meeting that the record stated there would be no homework during Thanksgiving and Christmas break. Sometimes certain things, it doesn't have to be memorandum, but certain impetus has to come from the district, because sometimes the parents are either not getting involved, or the parents, like the previous commenter said about athletics, sometimes somebody doesn't want to be the first in the parent group to come forward and say something about the athletics, or maybe say something about the homework. So it's not so much putting all the onus or the pressure on the board, but sometimes people don't want to be the first one to dare to say something a little, I don't want to say controversial, a little different. Like one of the, like the comment about athletics, or my comments ongoing about homework. So that's why I'm trying to also get the board to be the springboard. I don't want to ask questions because I know you like more just comments. But if I was able to ask a question, I guess my question would be, didn't you say there would be no homework during Thanksgiving or Christmas?
Well, if I misspoke, I apologize. I don't know if that's, directed at me, but perhaps I
I don't think it
didn't
was
make.
directed at you.
No, it's not directed at you.
Are you guilty?
Well, I can't remember what I did yesterday.
Ms. Devlin, my clarification was only to say that I reported out about what we're doing at the various grade levels, K3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, in terms of trying to be responsive to concerns that we have, whether they've surfaced through surveys we've done of kids or from feedback from parents like you, with respect to the workload that kids are facing. So, yes, I reported that at the middle school and high school levels, I don't know if I used Thanksgiving, but I certainly said any significant break in the year, there will not be homework assigned, and there will not be, important tests the day that kids return from break and so on. My clarification was only to say that that was not that's not something that we dictated at the board level or at my level, and I've got no problem dictating other things or being the impetus for all kinds of change. But it was a summary of what the discussion has been at the various schools with their staff members and their students. So I was reporting out on what they are doing, but not on what we have determined that they must do.
That's even actually more positive and healthier, because coming from the people that are on the day-to-day level with the students, right there in the trenches, they're coming to this recognition. So that's actually more positive and healthy.
I'm glad you think so.
We're going to let the teachers teach and the coaches coach. That's our motto.
Did you have any feedback from the undergrades?
For the most part, we have our feedback has been very positive at the lower grades. I talked with a parent today, actually, from the lower grades about, our focus is on interacting with text for the most part at the elementary grades, and engaging in some type of reading activity for 20 to 30 minutes a night. And on the math side, it's more about reinforcement of concepts learned in school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our regular action items, and there's an additional opportunity for public commentary at the end. Ms. Clark is not available, so I'm going to move personnel. So I move action items A1 through A17 on the regular agenda. 14, there's an addendum, and I believe there are 2 audibles, Ms. Grant? Or Dr. D'Souza?
Well, the first audible is under A1, to just strike the first row, the one that ends with the effective date of 10/23/2015. So Mr. DeQuilla can just cross that out. And then the second audible, Ms. Grant, is, that was the only one. You almost fooled me.
As amended, I'll second the motion.
Oh, the second one is the addendum. Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Nonamaker. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Any discussion on the personnel items? Does anybody need additional time? Nope. Mr. DeQuilla, if you wouldn't mind.
Agenda items A1 through A17, including the adjusted A1 and the adjusted A14. Mr. Gilfield? Yes. Ms. Chicarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin? Yep. Mr. Franz? Yes. Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 8-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfillan.
I'd just like to move action items B1 through 19 on your regular agenda and B20 on your addendum.
I'll second the motion.
A few thank yous for the crowd. One for the Chatham Athletic Boosters, in the amount of $6,000 for videotaping boys soccer, girls soccer, and field hockey. A Chatham Middle School PTO donation in an amount of $10,166 for the purchase of scoreboards at the middle school gym. And last but not least, the Milton Avenue School PTO donation amount of $704 to be used in the funding. The purchase of a GMC laminator. Is that a car?
It's electric.
Don't hear.
About the booster 6,000?
I did that.
Oh, you did that, I apologize.
Yeah. If I can get, if you can get me in one for $740, I'm into it.
You're saying safety.
Those Chatham Education Foundation grants, the sky's the limit?
Yeah.
What is that?
No, this one?
The
Yeah,
number
Chatham
12?
Education Foundation.
I'm sorry, the Chatham Education Foundation. Generally speaking, they're here to hand out that check directly, I believe. So in the amount of $3,947 for the ball chair project, and the sky is the limit.
Is the sky the limit a drone?
It makes me think of Miley Cyrus on board.
Okay. It's a telescope? Very good. One?
Well,
Yeah, that's a big telescope.
Yeah, clearly.
I mean, you can see all the way to Mars.
Wow. That's fantastic, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gilfillan or Mr. DeQuilla?
All right.
Mr. DeQuilla?
Agenda items D1 through B20, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli.
yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Ms. Cronin.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
Mr. Nonamaker.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 8-0.
Moving on to curriculum, Ms. Kenny?
Yes, I'd like to move action item C1 for vote.
I'll second. Oh, should be the two of John's.
Oh.
You can't have everyone, John.
Mr. DeQuilla?
Second is rejected.
I can't imagine there's any discussion on this.
No.
If there is, Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind? Oh.
You know, the travel, some of the travel.
Roll call vote.
I know.
Roll call vote.
Agenda item C1, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Ms. Cronin.
Yep.
Mr. Brand.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
Mr. Nonamaker.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 8-0.
Excellent, thank you very much. We have our board business.
No, no
Talk about
policy. D.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Apologize again. Always a bridesmaid, my bad.
Punch in the gut.
Just like at home.
I know.
Got an item, so.
Phil, I'm so sorry. Policy, Mr. Franz?
I move agenda item D1.
Second.
I need to ask this question, because I say I
Two of each other.
neglected to read regulation 8820, opening exercises. All I can see, are we moving to some form of
Calisthenics.
situation where we're doing calisthenics out in front of the schools prior to opening now, with toe touches and jumping jacks, or is this an opening exercise or something else?
It's for the
The flag.
pledge and the,
Pledge of
Well,
allegiance.
all right, then I did actually. Okay.
Well, I like your
Figurative
thinking,
exercises.
we might think.
I mean, it's nothing like a toe touch in the morning.
I didn't know we were doing that back then.
None of make it work that with that.
When I get up and
Roll call.
Agenda item D1, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Ms. Cronin.
Yes.
Mr. Brand.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny.
yes.
Mr. Nonamaker.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes,
Agenda items passed 8-0.
thank you. We have opportunity for any board business, old, new board business that we haven't discussed. I know we covered a lot of topics earlier. Any additional topics anybody would like to bring up?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up, I heard from a friend that the women's tennis program had a really good year. They finished first in a couple of, I mean, I think that's good news. I think that's news that, we should share. They won the districts or,
They did have a very strong season.
Don't we wait until fall?
Yeah, I can give some kind of summary report about all the fall sports teams, probably at the next meeting, actually.
okay.
That would be great. Are there additional comments or board business? Any board member? No? Seeing none, we have our second opportunity for public commentary, although I think we went through the entire public a couple of times. Unless we grab somebody off the street, I don't see any additional public commentary. I make a motion to adjourn the public session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against?
There's no executive session.
There's no executive session.
No, there is not. Thank you, Tom.